All right. Well, we are here. Welcome everybody from 9930. We get together for the prayer revolution, which is an opportunity for us to pause, breathe, say a little prayer of connection to ourselves and to the Lord in our heart. And then we have a conversation about it, about how to bring the mood of prayer into our daily life beyond just asking for a few things, asking for peace, asking for serenity, asking for this, that, and the other, but really making ourselves available to a higher way of living, tuning into higher frequency of surrender, of divine guidance, of curiosity and humility, and eagerness to find the gifts that are being offered to us on a daily basis and the challenges that come along with that. So, with that, Virabhadra, lead us in a moment of prayer.
Yeah, absolutely, Baba. Thank you so much for sharing, and grateful to be exploring with all of you guys this morning. So grateful. I'm going to start off. It's a very, very short prayer, but I'll just take it from there. This is from Bhakti-yoga Thakur, a great saint in the Bhakti tradition. And he's speaking about being present with God, being present in our life. We can, those of us that are not familiar with prayer, then just find a comfortable seat, find a pause in your morning or your day, wherever you are in your evening. Find a pause, start connecting to your breath, just taking nice deep inhales and exhales. And stop doing whatever you're doing, just be right now. Take a few minutes just to be and to receive the energy of grace into your life. Whatever it is that you need right now, I'll share a few words, I'll share a prayer from my heart. The intention is that that prayer is the medicine that you need. And maybe the words aren't exactly the words, but the energy of grace, exactly what you need in your life, comes into your heart. Let's open up to receive. Forget the past that sleeps, and the future dream at all, but act in times that are with thee. In progress thee shall call. My Lord, today I pray to you that wherever my mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, please help me to bring it back under control of my higher self. Please help me to bring it back to awareness that you're with me walking on the path right this moment. No matter what's taking place in my life, whether I'm experiencing the highs of the material world or the lows of this world, that help me to bring my mind back to remembering you, remembering that you're my dearmost friend, remembering that you're with me as a shepherd, and I may experience the storms of the day, I may experience darkness of the night, I may forget you in the brilliance of the sun, but that you're with me always. Please help us to bring our mind back to that truth, that in our hearts, the Lord is sitting there with our individual soul. And right now, in these moments, we can remember that we're never alone, that we're always with our dearmost friend. In every single moment of our life, we have the opportunity to soften the grips, the beliefs that we have, the limiting beliefs, whatever the projection is of future happiness or future suffering or the past regrets or the past thrills that we've had in our life. That life doesn't exist in the past or the future, but it exists right now in the moment. It exists right now in this moment. And in that connection with you, life becomes an adventure. No matter what's taking place, I enter back into that state of discovery and begin to see everything in the world is happening for my growth, for my development, for my transformation of heart. Everything is leading me toward the deepest treasures, my connection with you and the expression of love for my soul. Let us have that courage, and please give us that faith and help us to see that reality. Help us to know that you're with us right now. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Beautiful. Can you read those first lines from Bhakti-yoga Thakur one more time? There's just a few short lines. So powerful.
Give me 1 second.
Yeah, no, take your time.
Just closed it up. It is, forget the past that sleeps and the future dream at all, but act in times that are with thee. In progress thee shall call.
So apropos in our current circumstance of I was talking with somebody yesterday, and I think that the situation we are right now in COVID-19, the question is, how long is this going to last? Is it going to be another week, another month, another 2 months, the rest of the year, etc. And it's easy to get into that mode of anxiety, of uncertainty in the future. And yesterday, April 7th, was the beginning of the 2020 100-day project, which is for 100 days, artists or people, ideas that you do some creative work, you write something, draw something, post something, and you post it on Instagram or social media every day as an accountability. The idea is that you do it every day so that, you don't think about being perfect. You don't think about creating these masterpieces. You just do it every day. You show up regardless of the quality. Mm-hmm. And so I started mine yesterday, and I started doing what I called it I'm calling it my 100 one day at a time project, or 100 just for today project, where I had this daily book of meditations and reflections. And at the end of them, there's this little section. It's called just for today. Meaning that, there's whatever's it's like sometimes I was thinking of Buru Jambu in the Japa book that we reference sometimes. Some of us, we have these commitments or vows to chant a certain amount of japa every day. So we have these mala beads, and there's 108 beads on one round of mala. And then we chant that full round, a certain number of times. Some of us might chant 16 times in a day. So what's 16 times 108? It's a lot. I don't even know. There's like a lot of mantras, and he says, how do you chant? How do you convince your mind to do all of that? And he says, you chant one mantra at a time, just like one step at a time. Mm-hmm. And so it's a lot of thoughts are coming to my mind, a lot of stories, a lot of comparisons, analogies, but just that idea of just like, all I have right now is the present day and the present moment. Let me just focus on one step, one piece of the journey at a time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's beautiful, DG. I'm loving it. And just, that's the only place that life exists,
Yeah.
The idea that our happiness is in the future, and it never comes, because it always stays in the future. And we talked about that doing consciousness being in the mode of passion, where it's like, man, yeah, happiness is like when those problems get solved, or happiness is like when I'm on that vacation, or happiness is when the coronavirus is done, or, when I get that relationship, or whatever it is, right? Yeah. When I find my purpose, then I'll be happy. And it's really like this incredible postponement of life. We're like postponing life, and in the process, really missing out the only real place that life exists in the moment, the only real place that bhakti exists, right? Bhakti's not in the past, bhakti's not in the future, bhakti's in a connection in the moment. Being able to have our consciousness fixed on the Lord, or have our consciousness fixed on a mood of service, and then sharing that in the moment, sharing that consciousness. And so I was appreciating that as I was going to bed last night. I know how much I'm in the future and I'm in the past. I know that my mind is just constantly fluctuating, and in those fluctuations, I'm missing life. And so it's kind of like those sort of like commitments of like, man, I don't want to miss life. Like, man, I don't want to suffer, like I want to be happy, like there's these like feelings, that, yeah, I want to be happy. I don't want to miss out. I don't want to miss out on the party. And it's literally every moment there's a party, and the senses and the conditioned mind, it just keeps us out of this adventure that's unfolding right now. So
Yeah.
that's something that I'm reflecting on. And as I was going to bed last night too, and it's such an interesting thing. Like last night, because I woke up super, super early this morning because I was doing worship for the deities at the Bhakti Center. I was doing the traditional worship, beautiful meditation. And I woke up really early, like 3:30 this morning. So I went to bed really early last night. I like started winding down at like 7:30. I was like, really? You're gonna start to wind down at 7:30? I was like, what? Like that's not okay. Like there's still way too much day to be had.
Loser.
There's way too much to do still, you know? And I was like, okay, come on, just lean into it. You're gonna wake up early, you know, just lean into it, see what it's like. I started leaning into it and just noticing, like, as I lean into like this slower pace of life, as I lean into like, you know, going to bed earlier and rising earlier, it's like there's this real fulfillment that's inside. Like, oh, now I'm sitting down to read earlier. Now I'm sitting down to journal and write and reflect. And it's like all those things that like I'll end up going to bed wishing I would have had more time to do. It's kind of counterintuitive, but yeah, actually slowing down and really being present in those moments. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
You're inspiring a lot of people to go to bed earlier. A lot of people were, you know, somebody said it's the sudden realization that you're old.
Yeah, totally.
Getting there. Yeah. I mean, it's somebody also with the sudden realization that you're okay. It's like, what is that feeling that I'm not allowed? It also kind of, what I'm hearing is that it speaks to the power of culture
Mm.
and the culture that we surround ourselves in. You know what I mean? And like, who's determining what's okay, not okay? You know what I mean? It's like yesterday we talked about going to India. We had some, we talked about jaundice and getting shot. But and the benefits of going to a spiritual culture is that when you're, so, you know, when you go to when we spend time in India and the places that we go, and in the mood of the pilgrims that we go with, there's this, it's kind of like certain spiritual practices are just easier because it's just the mode of nature that people are in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, everyone
Mm-hmm.
around you is going to bed earlier. Everyone around you, everyone around you is waking up earlier. It's like, oh, okay, I'll do that too. But if
Mm-hmm.
it's New York City in the summer and it's, 11 o'clock at night, people are still out partying, you go to sleep and you're just like, I feel like a loser. Why am I going to bed? The world is still so active outside of me, you know? And so I think it's in order for that to continue, like in order for us to, first of all, we're stepping out against the grain and recognizing that, like, oh, I'm choosing not to flow in this stream of culture. You know what I mean? Like we're all flowing in a stream of culture because it influences our values and what we feel is okay and what we feel is right or wrong. Like why does it feel weird to go to bed at 7:30? Because culture conditions us to think otherwise. Oh no, you're supposed to watch, that's prime time, 8 to 10 p.m. is prime time television. Like that's when you're supposed to be, eating a pint of ice cream and watching a movie, And so, but who's determining that? And so I'm kind of, it's just hearing a little bit about that sometimes our spiritual aspirations stand in the face of the culture we surround ourselves in, and that's a hard challenge. And but to recognize that, like, oh, I'm not doing something wrong. I'm just going against the grain of a particular culture that I'm submerging
Mm-hmm.
myself in. And how could I choose to pick myself up and put me in a different culture?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What culture do I want to surround myself in? Because my culture so much determines what I feel is okay or not okay for me to be doing at any given time. And
Yeah.
it's like a river. Culture is like a river. It's like a stream that just flows in a certain direction.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, New York City, right? It's the river of passion, man.
Oh my
It's like,
God.
it's like you just like put your consciousness just slightly. You're like, oh, you just like soften the reins a little bit, and you're like flowing down the river rapids. 2 seconds later, I oftentimes think about it. I'm like, because I still like, I like from probably about like 15 to 22, like I partied and I drank and smoked and had like a total social life and partied a lot and I think about New York, like oftentimes like I'm out and I'm like, I'm not that far removed from that. Like that's still like I still smell like certain fragrances, like, you know, a certain type of incense burning in New York, you know, it has a very fresh fragrance. And I'm like, oh, that's an interesting smell. You know, like I still feel all those feelings and those conditionings and those desires. They're still there. They're not like finished totally, you know. I don't
Yeah.
act on them. But man, like if just like letting the mind just go slightly, it's like, boom, I'll like be in like a bar. Like I'll like sleep through prayer revolution tomorrow because I'm like, you know, stayed out too late, was hungover the next day, you know. So it's like actually just like really recognizing like, wow, like the whole world, and especially a city like New York, or, you know, there's so many cities in the world that are like that too. They're
Yeah.
like, it's like a powerful river rapid, you know, passion, ignorance,
Yeah.
who we put ourselves into contact with, right? When we're in India together, all of a sudden we're waking up at 3, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock every single morning, and like, no problem, you know, maybe a little sleepy, but we're pumping, we're going for 2-hour walks, and we're going to temples, and we're meditating, and we're doing yoga, and then it's kind of like, it's not even like a question, you know. And
Yeah.
so powerful, just recognizing what river rapids are around me, you know. Let me just be conscious of that. Like I'm around powerful energy that if I let myself go too much and I just kind of go with that culture, go with that flow, that it may take me somewhere that I'm not really interested in going, you know.
Yeah, totally.
And so
I remember the first time I went to India. I was a young monk. I was 18 or 19 years old, and I just wore robes all the time. So I wore a dhoti around my waist and a chadar and a shirt. And you know, when I was there, like you know, the utilities are much simplified. So I was washing my clothes by hand every day in a bucket. You just wash your clothes in hand every day in a bucket, and then you hang it out to dry outside. And I did that every month. I was like, this is so cool. This is so efficient. And it's just like it became like a meditation, like part of my day, you know, just kind of easing it. It's like I would wake up, do my spiritual practice, have breakfast, wash my clothes, do some reading, maybe take a nap, have lunch. It was like a very, just kind of like a peace, like a mode of goodness type of lifestyle. I was like, I'm going to do this when I get back. And I remember getting back to America. I was living in Southern California in an ashram there, and just being in like an American city, and like, I remember like I was just like, no one else was washing their clothes in a bucket. Everyone was there was like laundry machines everywhere. And I remember just washing my clothes in a bucket after 2 days. I was like, this is stupid. Like, why am I doing this? You know what I mean? Like, everyone's like looking at me like, why are you wasting your time doing that? And I was like, yeah, why am I doing this? You know? And I just went back and started using the laundry machine again. You know what I mean? Or just whatever it is. You know, somebody posted up, I think Sarah LaFleur, she posted that it was such a culture shock going and spending time living in an ashram she did for a couple months, she mentioned, and then coming back. It's like it's so hard to keep that resolve sometimes. And I just want to clarify, it's not Indian culture like versus American culture. It's spiritual culture that is very alive in certain places of the world. But we can create that culture here. It's not that you have to go to India in order to be spiritual. You can do that right here. And I think that's part of, I mean, that's part of the prayer revolution. Why it's a revolution. It's not just it's a revolution of consciousness that we're trying to create spiritual culture. We're
mm-hmm.
trying to establish spiritual culture. And spiritual culture isn't wearing a certain type of clothes. It's not shaving your head. It's not, you know, eating certain types of foods. Like, it has to be Indian food or this food or that food. But it's a culture of consciousness that manifests in our external activities in different ways. But it starts with that culture of the heart. It's really creating a spiritual culture of the heart that, and then external culture is a way of living that protects that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Culture is just a way of life that supports and protects and encourages certain values, either spoken or unspoken values.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so it's really a question of what are my values? What am I really striving for in this life? What are we as a society striving for? You can tell a lot about society's values by the way they function in culture.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, imagine if you're just like an alien race looking at Earth or looking at America or looking at your life. What would they think you value?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? What is it that you value based on the way that culture structures things? And I think it's just, it's that courageous step of saying, oh, I'm not going to just flow with the stream of culture. I'm going to determine what I value, and then I'm going to set up a culture on my life to protect that, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
It's beautiful. Yeah, the
Yeah,
people that I associate with, the foods that I eat, the time I go to sleep, the time I wake up,
totally.
the music I listen to, the books I read, the things I go to on my computer, what I watch, like everything starts to kind of, it can support that spiritual consciousness. It can support that, you know. And
Yeah.
if we're looking at it and we're exploring, we're seeing, it's like, wow, okay, as I go through my days, like what thoughts support that, you know? And
Yes.
what activities support that, and what people
Yes.
support that. When I watch
Yes.
that, does that support? It's like
Yeah, exactly.
everything either becomes, it's a supportive element, or it's like, no, this is kind of taking me away from my goal. This is sort of this is taking me
Yes.
away from that consciousness and that awareness, right? And that being conscious of those choices that we're making, and then being aligned with actually working with that goal. That's what we're looking to create, that culture, right? Create that
Yeah.
culture supporting that consciousness.
Yeah. Because otherwise it's just so easy to wander, just wandering through life. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
There is somebody, I've heard this, it's called this principle of the path.
Mm.
Principle of the path, that direction, not intention, determines your destination.
Mm.
And so it's like, you get on, like if you're in New York City, you get on the F train going uptown, you're going to wind up on 57th Street. No matter
Mm.
how much I pray or meditate, I'm going to get on the F train going uptown. I'm not going to end up in Brooklyn. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it was like my intention, my prayer was to end up in Brooklyn. It was like, no, but you got on the F train going uptown. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? That's the direction of that train. And so sometimes we have an intention for our life, but the path we place ourselves on with our activity and our choices is in a totally different direction.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so it's like, how did I end up in here in life? Well, if you backtrack and retrace your steps, you'll see that I was on a path. I was
Mm-hmm.
on a path. I'm always on a path that leads me directly to where I'm at. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? We're always on a
Mm-hmm.
path that leads me direct to where we are. And sometimes this principle is very easy to kind of understand in driving, in public transit, in hiking, in travel. Like, oh, I want to go somewhere. I need to create a map to get there. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes in terms of like the life direction and spirituality, we just kind of think like, any path will get me there. Anything will just get me to where I want to go. It's like, no, like I want to reach a specific destination. I need to put myself on a path that's going to take me there. I need to determine what life activities are going to support that and what are going to deter me from that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's spiritual culture. That's
Mm-hmm.
spiritual practice. That's where you get, in yoga, you have the yamas and the niyamas, basically
Mm-hmm.
the do's and the don'ts. It's not just some rules of like, these things are good, these things are bad. It's like, if you want to achieve, because what is the ultimate, the Ashtanga yoga, the yamas and the niyamas, asana, pranayam, pratyahara,
Dharana, dhyana.
dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. You know what I mean? I want samadhi. I want these higher states of meditation. Okay, start with then
Mm.
your sensual engagements.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm. Preach on, brother. Come on,
preach
let's
it,
hear
preach
it.
it.
Love it. No, I love it. And it's something that's like, okay, so often, Swami Prabhupada would say, first become conscious, then become God conscious, or then become Krishna
Yes.
conscious. And we're getting guidance all the time. We're getting guidance all the time. Every moment of our life, there's guidance taking place,
Mm.
and we feel it, right? It's so much of it is like, man, okay, like after we've done something, and the more we get in touch, actually, that inner voice, that inner, we feel like, nah, that was out of integrity. I feel sluggish after eating that meal, or I didn't sleep as good eating food late at night, or I hung out with that person and man, like we were just gossiping the whole time and like it didn't feel good, or whatever it is. There's so many activities that we're gonna be engaged in, just being conscious actually. Like DG, you're pointing it out, like, man, I want to become a more compassionate person. I want to become a more grateful person. I want to become a more loving person. I want to be a more kind person. The activities in my life, what I'm putting through my senses, people I'm associating
Mm.
with, it has to be aligned with that. If
Yeah.
it's aligned with that, then I'm building that consciousness. I'm supporting that consciousness. And I'm going to be in that river, right? I'm going to be in a river of grace instead of a river of, more unconscious, just kind of being taken by material
Yeah.
energy, being taken by New York City, First Avenue,
Yeah.
taken
Yeah.
down,
Yeah.
taken down to the Hudson, take them down to the Hudson.
Yeah, and I think that from the beginning of the prayer you mentioned, like it's like how do I? Because sometimes I mean I just continuously going back to this because this is what I hear often from people that I talk to about like spiritual culture and practice, that sometimes it just can get so overwhelming of like, holy crap, so I gotta shift my whole culture in life. Great, okay, I gotta reroute this ship, and it can just kind of seem like this idea of like wanting to fast forward and get there sooner than later, and
Mm-hmm.
the struggle that goes with it. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that sometimes we don't allow ourselves to make incremental changes over time, one day at a time. And
Mm.
a story that came to my mind initially, right at the beginning, is that there's this documentary, I know we got to wrap up in a few minutes, but there's this documentary. It's a movie documentary. It's called Touching the Void. You ever seen it?
No.
It's about these two mountain climbers. And so these two, I think they're British or Australian, I forget, and they're in Peru, I think it is, South America. And they're climbing this mountain. And they're kind of like these young, adventurous guys climbing up this mountain. And there's this code of mountain climbing, like serious, like scaling massive cliffs. And they tie themselves to each other by the waist, so that if one person falls, the other person catches them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And there's this code that you never cut the rope, like
Mm-hmm.
never cut the rope, like you always, like you climb and you live and die together. And so
Mm.
they made it up this very treacherous kind of, people were warning against it at this dangerous time of year. They made it all the way to the top, and they're like, great, we made great time. And then they realized we have to start making it down quickly because like a snowstorm was coming. And so they're making their way down, and this massive blizzard snowstorm hits them on the side of this mountain in Peru. And I think it was Peru. And they recognize like they're running out of water. They're melting ice cubes to drink water, and they're just like they're losing direction, and they're starving, and they're just making their way down. And then at a certain point, one of the guys, like he falls and he breaks his leg.
Oh my
One of
gosh.
the guys breaks his leg, and they're so far from base camp, and they're just like, oh my god, like already we weren't sure if we were going to make it in time or not. And so they tie themselves to each other, and they just start kind of sliding down this mountain. Like they're just going one step at a time. And then all of a sudden, the guy with the broken leg, he's like in this thing, the ground falls out from underneath the ice, and he falls down this cliff. And the guy who's healthy is holding on to him. And the guy with the broken leg is just suspended in air, just suspended in air, being held by this other guy who's holding him by the waist. And they're there for like an hour, and the guy doesn't have the strength to pull him back up. The blizzard's coming, and the guy who's holding him with the healthy leg, he's like, I got to make a choice. I got to make a
Mm-hmm.
choice. And so he does. He decides, he's like, this guy's probably dead. If I don't cut him, we're both gonna die.
Mm.
They can't communicate with each other because they're so far away. So he cuts the rope. He cuts the rope, and the guy with the broken leg falls, I don't know how many feet down, into like this chasm of this cave of this like ice area. And he falls down in there, but he's still alive. And he's like, what the hell just happened? And he literally crawls himself out of that cave with a broken leg. And he's just staring at this massive landscape of land by himself, alone, with a broken leg. And what he does, the way, like it's this incredible survival story of how this guy like spends hours, like days, weeks of almost dying. But what he does is, and this is the point of the story, I'm not just trying to tell a funny adventure, interesting adventure story, is he looks at a rock that maybe is 10 feet away or 15 feet away. And he says, I'm going to give myself 10 minutes to get to that rock.
Mm.
And he's like, that's all I got to focus on. I don't have to, there's a million rocks in front of me on this path I need to get to. He's like, I'm just going to give myself 10 minutes to get to that one rock. And that's all he focuses on.
Mm-hmm.
It's like all his energy, and he gets to that rock. Then he looks at the next rock. I'm going to give myself 45 minutes to get to that rock way over there. That's all he focuses on. And he does that for days and weeks. He's just like, that's all he focuses on, like one rock. It's like, if I focus on the 1,000 rocks ahead of me, I'm going to go insane. I'll never
Mm-hmm.
get there. My mind will drive me crazy. I'll like get
Mm-hmm.
so too discouraged, too depressed. But if I break it down, all I got to do, he's like, I can get to that rock in 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I can get to that rock in 10 minutes. And he does that, and to the near brink of death, and he survives, and he helped narrate his story. But it's just like, It's just how do I cross mountains? It's just like one rock at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Break it down into bite size. How do I chant all my 2 hours of meditation every day? 1 minute at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Don't tell your mind you have 2 hours of meditation ahead of you. Tell your mind, just focus for the next minute.
Mm-hmm.
Focus on the next sound vibration. Focus on just this, do the next right thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so it's like, just for today, one day at a time, right now. That's like your prayer in the beginning, you know? Forget the past with dreams or the future dreams at all, like to the moment that we've been given right now. And I think that that's how we change the course of life. That's how we shift the culture we live in. That's how we shift the culture of the heart. It's just like one thought, one decision at a time.
Mm-hmm. Amazing.
Yeah, it's a true story.
Amazing, DG. Thank you for sharing that. My God, I'm loving the comments flowing after that. Just being able to see, the eye of the bird, right? It's like that focus, right? It's like focus on where we can put energy right now, where we can direct that energy right now in this moment. And it's so powerful, Baba. I love it.
Thank you guys so much. We love being with you. We got the thumbs up from Lalita Priya, Lauren Ross Creative. You guys are awesome. She's encouraging us. That's great. She's going to renew our contract at the Bhakti Center. So for keeping the show going. We love you guys so much. You're a blessing in our lives. We love seeing you. Please write to us if you have any questions, thoughts, reflections, feedback. We'll see you guys tomorrow, right?
See you tomorrow, Baba. See you tomorrow. See you guys tomorrow. Love you. Thank you. You're amazing. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Have a great day, everybody. Thank you.
See you, bro.